اه خ Rồi, em mata le gua dari guys. No, em mata gua dari kan zawar kan. Kha. Kha. Machos khun nasta no ma khuma khan nazar. بس عشان ما تفرقين Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to the new class. I hope that you guys can now clearly listen to my voice. So today we're having our new class, our next class after a long time. So welcome to class. And in today's lecture, we will learn about functions. What are functions in C++, and how do we use functions? What are the perks of using functions in our code? So but before I start, I would let you guys know that we're going to complete this lecture in two parts. So for tonight, we will go for the part one, and then tomorrow's night or in the next class, we will cover the second part of this lecture. Because this is the functions concept include some more concepts, right? Concepts such as function overloading, right? So there are, various terms that you have to know about. So we'll just divide this session into parts. So today is our first part of functions lecture, right? So I'm sure that you guys can easily hear my voice. So we're just going to open up our theory here. We will work with these things practically, right? So first of all, we should know that what is a function, what we call a function, right? So be attentive, guys. A function, wait, before I start, if you guys have any question, you can ask me in the chat option, all right? So we're just going to get started. A function, what is a function? A block of code that performs a specific task when being called. A block of code that performs a specific task when being called. That could be any block. You define statements in a function, right? For some specific purpose. And if you want that block to be executed, if you need that portion of code to be executed, so we just call them. And remember that a function will never be executed automatically until you call that function, until you invoke that function. So I'm sure this is clear that a function is a block of code, a block of a group of statements, you can say, which performs a specific task when being called. So you should keep in mind that function will never work until it's being called, right? So we will learn that how to call a function later on in this lecture, but for now we're having some benefits of functions. If you implement functions in your code, what will be the perks? What would be their advantage? So the first one, as you can see, that if you use functions, using functions cause readability. So what does that mean? You see, if you use functions in your code, in your program, and if you're coding a program that is quite lengthy, right? That's a program which is complex. And if you take advantage of functions, then that code would be readable. Others would read that code easily. So that's why that's one of the benefit of functions. If you use functions, your code will be it will cause readability, means that code will be understood by everybody, because of using these functions. It makes your program easier to understand, right? So that's it. That's the first benefit. And we have the second one. Functions help us to provide reusability, right? If you create a function, right, which performs. I just came back due to poor connection. The class was being interrupted, but anyway, we're just going to conduct this class anyway. So what is the second benefit? That it help us to provide reusability. What is the reusability? That means suppose you write a function for performing addition, right? Addition of, for example, 10 values, or a function which is used for finding the percentage of several subjects, right? So if you need that percentage code, that so suppose you write a function for finding a percentage, and you use that, you are required to use that block of code several times in your entire program. So you see that if you write a function, that would make it easier to use it again, because you will have to just write a single line of code, and then you will execute that function without having to write that entire block of code again in your program. All right, once we work with it practically, you guys then can easily relate with it. Okay, so what is the third benefit? That is saving time, right? So imagine writing that code just once and then reusing it. That would definitely save your time. But if you're not taking advantage of functions, then you will have to type that block of code again and again in your program, and it will also make your program code longer. So that's why it can save your time. See that the fourth benefit is that makes code shorter. So if you use functions, that would definitely make your code shorter, and it will also save your time. So once we work with these functions practically, then you guys can relate to these benefits. But for now, we're going to talk about types of functions. We have two types of functions in C++ programming language, or in any other language. The first one is called built-in function, and the second is called user-defined. The built-in functions are those which are written by the developers of a programming language. We cannot modify built-in functions. Keep that in mind. And you don't have to code anything for using that built-in function. You just have to call that built-in function, and it will definitely work, right? So that is definitely called So that is definitely called built-in function. And the second one we have is called user-defined function. That is when user by his own defines a function for his or her own purpose, right? So that are called user-defined functions. So the one that we're just studying right now is known as user-defined function, because a programmer or a user will have to declare or will have to define a function. So this will be called, the one we're studying is known as user-defined function. The one that we use and that are defined, that are predefined, are known as built-in functions. We cannot modify anything in built-in functions. They are already built for some specific purposes. So the second one is user-defined functions. So let's see the syntax of defining a function in C++ programming language. First of all, you should know about function prototype or signature. This line right up here is known as function signature or prototype. First of all, you should declare the return type of a function. Keep that in mind that every function in C++ has a return type, right? So first of all, you should declare the return type, then the function name followed by parentheses. And if that functions that you want to write takes arguments, then you can add arguments, but you can also leave these parentheses being empty. That would definitely make no problem. It all depends on your requirement. So then you will have to put a curly braces, and whatever statements you want to write in your program, just write them down. And at the end of those statements, you have to return a value, right? So once we work with it practically, then that would definitely be clear. So you see, what is a function definition? What is a function definition? You should keep these terms in your mind. A function definition, the body of function is called function definition. The body of function is called function definition. It's where you define all the required statements, right? So what does it mean? Right up here, this one, these statements, or you can say this function body is known as function definition, because you actually, these statements define the usage of this function. These statements definitely indicates the purpose of this function. It defines this function, the one that you have just declared. So this known right up here is known as function definition. So what is function call? As I told you guys earlier, that whenever you write a function, whenever you define a function, you must have to give a call to that function. And if you want that function to get started, to be executed, if you want a function to get executed, so you have to give that function a call. So the part of the code which calls a function in order to start working is known as function call, right? That is function call. And how to call a function? Simply write the function name, the one that you just declared in the function signature, then put parentheses. And if that function that you just defined, if that's taking arguments, just pass arguments here. We will talk about arguments, right? Don't worry about it. And then just put semicolon. So once the control flow of control comes here, that line will be executed, and that means the function that you've just called, this part will be executed because of this function call. So this is all in our first part. There are some more terms which is known as function overloading, etc. But we will work with that in the next session, in the next part of functions chapter, right? Functions topic, you can say. Now let's work with functions practically. I'm just going to open up my compiler and we will work with functions practically. I'm sure that functions might seem a bit confusing because you guys are new to functions, but once you learn about functions, that would definitely help you out in programming. And yeah, it's usually in complex programs. So you will have to use functions in complex programs. So we're just going to define a function, a simple function that would be useful for you guys to easily get my points. So first of all, as I said, as I told you guys, first of all, here's the syntax of defining a function. First of all, you have to declare the return type. So what can be that return type? that can be integer, float, or void. So for now, I'm just going with void. Just simply type the void here. That is return type. Then the function name, suppose add, that's my function name. Or you can say welcome, or we're just going with a very common, with a very simple function, welcome message, then put parentheses. So now in this case, I don't need any arguments. And I will also tell you guys that why I put void here. What is meant by void return type? You can also put integer here, int, float, or string, whatever you like. But for now, I'm just going with void here is my return type. And now I don't want to pass any arguments for this function, and I've simply made my body for the function. And now whatever I write here is known as the function definition. So I want the user to be welcome to function chapter. You can say welcome to function chapter. Suppose welcome to function chapter. That's it, right? I'm done. Now let's talk about return type. Let me just give this function a call and see what's going to happen. So just simply write the welcome message, which is the function name here, and let's check it out. Let me just save it and let me compile it by pressing F9. Let's see if that's working. Now it's compiling, see what's going on. And as you guys can see the result on your screen, I got whatever I have written in the functions body. You see that? Remember, what is mean by void here? First of all, let's talk about it. What is void here? Void is a data type, you can say, which means none. It is a data type which means none. It doesn't symbolizes any data type. Suppose we have integers, so that means we're going to work with integers. If that's float, we're going to work with decimals. But once we use void, that means none. That simply means none. Let me just put it here. Once we use void, this means none. So this function is returning non-value, means no data type, no return value. So that's why we use void here, right? That is void. So imagine, just keep in mind, if you don't want to if you don't want the function to return any value, then you have to put void here, and then this line should be removed, that should be deleted, because we don't want to return any value, right? And that is the return type, which is void in this case, means none. And welcome message, this one right up here, is known as the function name, the one we should use in the program, in the body, in the main function, right? So this is the function name. And then empty parentheses, as I told you guys, if the function is taking arguments, you can pass arguments. But if you don't want to pass any arguments, then you can go with empty parentheses. But keep in mind that you should put parentheses must with any function. That is the syntax of a function almost in every programming language. No, I'm not using Walaikum Salam and welcome Uzair to the live session. No, I'm not using online websites, right? So anyway, then in the function body, I simply type cout, welcome to function chapter. So that means whenever I call this function by its name, then that would be shown to the user in the output, because that's what I have defined in the function body. So see that, and keep in mind that we have to define this function outside of the main function, right? At the top of the main function, we have to define our function, not inside the main function or down below the main function, right? As you can see that this line right up here is known as the function call. So let's let's match it with this theory here. So function call, the part of code which calls a function in order to start working. See, function name, I simply type my function name, which is welcome message, then empty parenthesis, but this function is not taking arguments, so I would go with simply empty parenthesis. And once this program is being executed, once the control flow comes right up here and this message is being executed, this line is being executed, the control flow will go right up here at the top of the function, and then all those statements that you define inside the body function will be executed. That is simple, right? So that was one of the example of a function. Now I'm just going with another function, which is suppose used for adding. That means it's going to take some arguments. So the return value is integer, means once this function is being completely executed, it will return an integer value. You can understand it that way. So integer add is my function name, and then empty parenthesis, but I want to pass some arguments. I want the user to enter some values so that it should add those two values or three values. Suppose I want to write a function which will take three values from the user, and its data type will be integer, and that will be added and the result will be shown to the user. So I will define I will take three variables here, int x, int y, and z. Keep in mind that you should also declare the data type of these arguments. These are known as arguments. These are simply variables, you can say, and you must declare its data type. Okay. So now I'm just going to make my function definition. And what should be the function definition? The user will be told that the result of three given values is right is, and then there should be a back. All right, we just don't want to use backslash, and that's it. First of all, the user will be given this message, and then what is the return value? Now we have to make use of a return value here. So let me just scroll up to the return value. Now just declare the return value. So what should be the return value? Return, simply type return int x plus int y plus int z. That's it. So now if I want to call that function, I will simply write its function name, right, which is add, and then you have to pass values. Suppose 3, 6, and 10. I want these three values to be added by the help of this function, which is named as add. So let's see what happens. I'm just compiling this program, and then I will run it. So I've got an error here. Return. All right. That should be this way, int x plus y plus z. We don't have to again declare their data types. Yeah. So now it's again compiling, and it's done. You guys can check out the result on the screen. Let me just yeah, you guys can see that the result of three given value is that was not being executed. I didn't get the proper answer. Let me just close it in brackets and see if it works. So let me press F9 again in order to compile the program. And now it's compiling. Now still I don't get the result. What I'm missing out? Can you guys tell me? Okay, let me go back and check my examples folder in order to see what happened. Why this all happened? I don't know what's going on. There must be some error. So this is a return statement. I guess I forgot the return one. Return divide. Oh yeah. I'm sure it's just going to work now. Let me go here. Suppose int sum equals to x plus y plus z, and then return sum, and press F9 in order to compile the program. So it's now compiling, and still it's not giving me the proper answer. What I'm missing again, you guys can check out this return statement. Suppose I want to run this. So I'll press F9 and then I'll press F10. The required answer is 5. So what I just missed out, can you guys tell me? See out. Let me just do that. See out. Yeah, now you guys can check out the result. Now it's correct. You know why this all happened is because I didn't use see out. I got the result, but that was not shown to me. That was not shown to the user. So that's why we use see out in order to display that final answer. You guys check it out. Even if you remove these int variable, that would still work, I'm sure. Int x plus y plus z. That's it. So let's just compile it again. It's done, and now I'm just going to run it. You guys can check out the result here. So what really happened? What was going on at the back end of the program? First of all, once I compiled this program, these libraries were being imported, and the compiler also read this function that its name is add, its return value is integer, it's taking 3 arguments which are having data types integers, and then this message should be shown to the user, and the return value is integer, which is x plus y plus z, which is the addition of, which is the sum of all those 3 values. And then, as you guys know, that the operating system will find out the main function, and the execution will start right from here. So I have just a single line in the main function, which is cout add the function name, which you can simply say that this is a function call. So add, and then I pass 3 arguments. What does that mean? It means the x variable will get 3, the y variable 6 will be stored in y variable, and 10 will be stored in z variable, and these are integers. These values are having data types integers, and they are being stored, they're being passed to these the function arguments, right? So once these values were being passed to these arguments, then this body was being executed. First of all, I got this message on the screen. The result of the 3 given values is, and then the return values were x plus y plus z, and that's how I got my answer, which makes 19. So then this line gave me output as 19, which is the sum of 3 given values. So that's how a function works. Imagine you want to write more lines. Suppose you have more lines of code here, suppose 10 lines of code, and then again you want to add 3 values. So without having to copy this entire lines, this entire function, you can simply give a call to that function, and that function will be executed, and then you can also define more lines, right? You can simply just use cout even twice. That would make sense. And so I just want to pass more different values this time. Suppose these values. So if I execute this program again, if I compile it, that will still work. So I don't have to copy that entire block again and again, right? You see that was executed 2 times because I gave 2 calls to the defined function. So that's how we make a use of functions. It can save your time. I don't have to write this again and again in my program. That's a simple example. Suppose you have written you're required to write over 50 lines in this function. So this is easy. I mean, you can simply write 2 lines, but imagine if you're having 50 lines in this function, and then you have to use that function 10 times in your program. So you cannot write that 50 lines multiplied by 10. So you can simply give a call to that function once, just write that, define that function once, and then just simply give calls to that function, and that function will be executing without having to copy the entire block of code, the 50 lines of code. So it can save your time. It can make your program easier to be understood by others or even you, because this is simple program. Once we work with complex program, then that would really make sense. And it can also save your time. It can make your program shorter. You don't have to put those lines again and again in your program. So that's why we have the concept of functions in C++ programming language. That was all for now in the part 1. In the part 2, we will talk about function overloading, and if there's something more remaining, if there's something left behind, we will cover them up. So that is all for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this lecture and you guys learned something from it. And if you have still questions, go to the comment section of this video if you're watching it on YouTube and ask your questions. You will be answered definitely. So that was all for now. Thank you for giving me your precious time, and I will catch you guys in the next session. So for now, take care. I will see you guys very soon.